Good morning and once again welcome to my YouTube channel, Maths with Ease by Mr. Kamotho. And in this video I want us to respond to example 2 in handling data 6. And we are told that use learners grouped data from example 1 to A, calculate an estimate of the mean time of a phone call, and part B, estimate the number of phone calls that are more than 5.5 minutes. Now, we have to take care of the first part of the question because there is something which may seem new. There is the word mean here. And we all know that mean is average. And from the previous lesson or understanding, we know that the mean, which is symbolized as x bar, is given by the sum of fx, or rather sigma fx, divided by the sigma or the sum of f. So by all means, we have to have a column of fx and we have to have a column of f. It is true we have a column of f, which is the frequency. Now, but what is the sum of the frequency? Because sigma means sum of, and that is why we have come up with this sigma here. Before I go further, let me explain. The first column is time, the second column is frequency, the third column is width, and the fourth column is frequency density, as illustrated in the previous example, as we just know. The frequency density is given by the frequency you divide by the class width. For example, the frequency density of the first class, which is from 0 to 3, is the frequency which is 15. You divide by the class width, which is 3, and that is why we are having the frequency density of 5. The frequency density of class 2 is the frequency divided by the class width, which is 1, and this is 9 divided by 1, which is easily 9, and so on and so forth. But what I want to explain further is this column of the midpoint. The midpoint, which is actually x. The x is the group representative, and the midpoint is simply realized by the lower limit of the class, which is 0. You add to the upper limit of that class, which is 3, 0 plus 3, and then you divide by 2, and the midpoint of that class is 1.5, as illustrated here. For the second class, it is 3 plus 4, which is 3 plus 4, 7. 7 divided by 2 is 3.5, and that becomes the midpoint. For the third class, we have 4 plus 8, which is 12, divided by 2, which is 6, and that becomes the midpoint. The midpoint becomes now the class representative. That means every time we are talking about that class, we will be using the representative. And that is now how we create this column of fx. The frequency multiplied by the x, which is the class representative. That is why we are coming here to talk about 15 times 1.5 is 22.5. The frequency 9 for the second class multiplied by 3.5, 9 times the x 3.5 is 31.5. And the fx for the third class is 16 times 6, which is 96. And because we are talking about the sigma, so we have to have the sum of all this, which is 22.5 plus 31.5, that is basically 54. 54 plus 96 is 150. And what is the total frequency? Because we are required to have the total frequency at the denominator. 15 plus 19, that is 24. 24 plus 16, we have 40. And that means our mean, estimate of the mean, x bar, is equals to sigma fx, which is 150, divided by the sigma of the frequency, which is 40. And this is 15 basically divided by 4 is 3.75. That is the mean for that data. Part B of the question is asking us, estimate the number of phone calls that are more than 5.5 minutes. And we are going to use the histogram that we came up with in the previous video, or in example 1, part B. We are going to use the histogram, which is now transferred here, and this is what we are going to use. We are told to estimate the number of phone calls, the number of phone calls that are more than 5.5 minutes, that are more than 5.5 minutes. That is the question. And we already know that the area of each and every bar in the histogram talks about the frequency itself. And that frequency gives us back the number of phone calls in total. That means we have to identify the duration of 5.5 minutes, and we are going to find 5.5 between 5 and 6. There you go. There is our 5.5, and this being our 5.5, we can already extract it here, and this is basically 5.5. And the phone calls that are more than 5.5 minutes long is now, according to the interpretation of the histogram, the area of the whole of the region of the histogram that is over and above 5.5 minutes. That means what? We have to have the width, which is 5.5 all the way to 8 is actually 2.5, because this is 1, this is 2.5, 2.5. We multiplied by the height, which is 4, and this is 10. So we are talking about 10 phone calls which are more than 5.5 minutes long, and that is it. Thank you. Let us meet in the next video.